Powlett-Jones before about this, and I know his views very well. I know you're impatient, but just remember, Labour won the election against every forecast and with pitifully small election funds, and we're hanging on to a tiny majority in Parliament with a world depression threatening from outside. If we don't support this government, we'll be fragmenting and destroying the whole Labour movement. We can't afford to fight an election now, and if we force the pace, we'll be handing over to the Tories. You don't want that, do you, Mr. Powlett-Jones? Ramsay and Snowden and Jimmy Thomas, they're good men. We've got to trust our leaders and consolidate our gains so that when we go to the country again, we'll have such a mandate from the people that even Emrys Powlett-Jones can have all the nationalisation he wants.
Thank you, ladies. Time for tea.
You didn't tell me anyway.
Why? She's been down here a couple of times. Looking for a constituency, see? Wants to be in Parliament. Funny-looking little thing, isn't she? More like a whippet than a woman.
I'd like to meet her.
Oh, I can do that for you, Davy. Glad to. You won't like her, though. She's too tough for you, boy. She'll have you in tatters.
Well said, Emrys boy. Nice to see you home, Davy.
It ought to be well said by now. He asks the same question at every meeting.
Still waiting for the answer, too. Well, Miss Foster, this is my brother, Davy, home for the holidays. You wanted to be introduced.
Glad to meet you.
Lads are all your die.
Lead me to it, then, boys.
Emancipation hasn't gone very far in the valleys, has it? They don't quite know what to do with a woman politician. They'd be much happier if I stay in the kitchen brewing up tea with the lady members.
Oh, they gave you a hearing? Worth listening to, if I may say.
Oh, they'll give me a hearing, but I can whistle for a constituency. I'll have to fight a couple of no-hopers before I have any chance of a working-class seat. It's fair enough, I suppose. You don't look like a miner.
No, I'm not. Youngest son, you see. It happens a lot around here. My mother wouldn't let them take me down the pit.
I couldn't begin to guess what you do now.
Oh, I'm a teacher.
Yes, of course. What else? In London?
No, in Devon. It's a boarding school.
It's a public school.
Yes.
So that's your contribution to the class struggle, is it? Get on and get out?
What?
Oh, really? What's a miner's son and a socialist? You are a socialist, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
What on earth are you doing in a place like that?
I'm earning my living, doing what I can do best.
But you must see that... Oh, all right, I'm sorry, it's not important.
I may as well ask you, what do you think you're doing on your hind legs in a miners' social club? A bit of genteel slumming? I wouldn't have thought that your family was short of a bob or two.
That's not fair. I can't help being my parents' child.
No, of course you can't. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that.
Look, Mr. Powlett-Jones, it's been very interesting to meet you, but it's been a long day and I'm very tired. I think I'd better get back to my digs and have a night's rest.
But look here,
I'm
sorry
sorry if I've embarrassed or upset you. It's quite unimportant what one person chooses to do with his life, after all. If you could say goodbye and thanks to Di Evans for me, I'd be very grateful. I don't feel like intruding on his little clique again.
Look, wait a moment, please. Well, let me walk you back, at least.
Are the streets here so dangerous, then? I'd rather you didn't. Good night.
No, look, wait a moment, please. You can't leave it like this.
I'm afraid you're going to have to.
You're staying at Mrs. Edwards, are you?
Yes? How did you know?
Well, there's not a lot of choice. Don't have the shepherd's pie, though. They say she puts minced mole in it.
That could well be true. I had it for tea. Look, Mr. Powlett-Jones, I'm sure you're a very charming young man, but you're wasting your time.
You're very patronising, aren't you? I often wondered what these upper-class socialists were like.
I'm not being patronising. I'm simply trying to extricate myself as politely as I can in order that I may get back to my digs and have a night's rest. All right. I would find you a lot more interesting if you'd come back to teach here, where you're needed.
I haven't sold my soul to the devil, you know. I may well come back and teach here. But if you knew anything at all about public schools, you know that they're in much more need of enlightenment. People here know what the world's like. It's places like Bamfield that they need someone to tell them.
Bamfield?
Yes, do you know it?
My cousin went there.
Small world.
Yes, small and insular and privileged. You can't change the rich through education, you know.
Somebody managed to change you.
All right, Mr. Powlett-Jones, you've made your point. Could you just possibly go away and leave me alone now?
With pleasure. Good night, Miss Forster.
It's Mrs., in point of fact. Good night. This is absurd.
I beg your pardon?
I suppose we're both catching the Cardiff train.
I suppose so, yes.
We might as well be civilised about it, don't you think?
You didn't manage too well last night.
All right, that was my fault. I was pretty bloody to you. Sorry.
There's no need to apologise.
Well, it's done now. Is your brother on the early shift?
Yes. Since 6 o'clock.
It's hard to imagine them. The men I was talking to last night, miles underneath the ground.
Have you ever been down there, then?
They wouldn't let a woman down there. I know what it's like, though. Rowley used to talk a lot about the dignity of labour. It's hard to see where the dignity is when you're crawling on your hands and knees in an inch of water up a half-mile tunnel.
Rowley's a miner, is he?
God, no, he's never done a day's manual labour in his life. Rowley was my husband. Still is in the eyes of God. He's a Roman Catholic. Rowley at the coalface. That's something I'd love to see.
What does he do, then?
He's a university lecturer in Canada at the moment, I'm happy to say. He's one of the privileged, like you.
If you knew anything about Bamfield, you'd realise that you were mistaken.
I do know something about it. I told you, I've been there.
You can't have taken very much in, then.
Quite enough, thank you.
Anyway, I might not be there much longer.
Really? You've seen the light?
No, the headmaster's trying to get me dismissed. He sees me as a disruptive influence.
And are you?
Yes.
Well, well, there's more to you than meets the eye. I think it's stopped raining. Yes. There you are. You don't have to talk to me anymore.
Rowley was my moral tutor at Durham University. In this capacity, he introduced me to socialism, then to his bed, then married me, much to the disgust of his grand family. And he quarrelled with me. Finally, he left me. Nothing stuck except for socialism. See, no scars.
How long ago was this?
We parted 2 years ago.
No wonder you're still bitter about it.
I didn't say I was bitter about it.
You didn't have to. My wife was killed in a car crash 9 years ago.
I've talked to Mr. Powlett-Jones before about this, and I know his views very well. I know you're impatient, but just remember, Labour won the election against every forecast and with pitifully small election funds. And we're hanging on to a tiny majority in Parliament with a world depression threatening from outside. If we don't support this government, we'll be fragmenting and destroying the whole Labour movement. We can't afford to fight an election now, and if we force the pace, we'll be handing over to the Tories. You don't want that, do you, Mr. Powlett-Jones? Ramsay and Snowden and Jimmy Thomas, they're good men. We've got to trust our leaders and consolidate our gains so that when we go to the country again, we'll have such a mandate from the people that even Emrys Powlett-Jones can have all the nationalisation he wants.
Thank you, ladies. Time for tea.
You didn't tell me you knew.
Oh, she's been down here a couple of times. Looking for a constituency, see? Wants to be in Parliament. Funny looking little thing, isn't she? More like a whippet than a woman.
I'd like to meet her.
Oh, I can do that for you, Davy. Glad to. You won't like her, though. She's too tough for you, boy.